early 1730s, Russian officials reported that the Kazakhs were divided into three Jews, or hordes: the Lesser, the Middle, and the Greater. Abulkhair was Khan of Lesser Jews. In October 1731, Tikleev arrived for a meeting with Abulkhair to execute the Oath of Alliance.
I am here to finalize the Oath of Allegiance, Khan Abulkhair, but I see hesitation among your people.
Yes, Tevkalev. I am the only one interested in a Russian protectorate. The notables, the mutter, they are against it. They will only be convinced if offered numerous presents.
That may complicate things. Without their support, it could prove difficult.
I have lost my towns, even my wife, to the Oirats. I am surrounded by enemies, the Oirats to the east, Bukhara and Khiva in the southwest, the Kalmyks and Bashkirs in the northwest. I am at peace with Bukhara, Khiva, and the Kalmyks, but they are unreliable. If I could secure peace with the Bashkirs, I could avenge myself against the Oirats. But the Bashkirs refuse to reconcile without the Tsar's permission. That is why I wish to become Russia's subject, so I can make peace with them.
Then the path is clear, Khan, but you must lead your people to this decision.
The notables are angry. They accuse me of writing to Russia without consulting them. But what power do I have over them? I am a Khan in name only.
A more accurate view is probably that offered by Mikhail Porfiryevich Vyatkin in his 1941 study of Kazakh history. Vyatkin argues that the history of Russo-Kazakh relations from 1735 to 1869 was one of continuous popular opposition to Russian rule. According to this argument, the great uprising of the period by Saram Batyr, Sadet Aymanolo, and Kenisar Kasimov and Sadik were all related. Each rebellion fueled the next, all caused by the strong anti-Russian feeling among the Kazakhs, who saw the Russians as the cause of their deteriorating economic situation.
In the 1730s, the Russian Empire recognized the strategic importance of Orenburg in its efforts to colonize the Kazakh steppe. Situated between the Bashkirs and the Kazakhs, Orenburg became a vital military and trade hub for Russia. In 1735, the construction of Fort Orenburg began under the leadership of Ivan Kirillov. This fort was more than just a defensive stronghold. It was a gateway for Russia to expand its influence over Central Asia. By securing Orenburg, Russia opened up vital trade routes with cities like Kyiv and Bukhara. By these routes, Russia could access valuable resources: gold, silver, precious stones, and silk, creating a powerful trade network. Orenburg also allowed the Russian Empire to establish diplomatic and political control over the Kazakh Khans. By 1742, the Kazakh Khan Abulkhair sought Russian protection, understanding the power of the empire.
On June 22, 1822, a new era began for the Kazakhs of the Middle Horse. The rules on the Siberian Kyrgyz were issued by the Russian Empire, marking a major change in how this land was governed. The man behind this change was Michael Speransky, an important statesman and the governor of Siberia. He introduced a completely new administrative structure, extending Russian control over the Kazakhs of the Middle Horse. Before these reforms, the Kazakhs largely governed themselves. Now, their lands were split into administrative districts. Each district was overseen by a newly appointed leader, known as Aga Sultan. These districts were made up of 15 to 20 smaller areas, called volosts, and each volost consisted of around 10 to 12 villages, or auls, with each aul containing 15 families. While the Kazakh people continued living in their villages, they now had to answer to Russian-appointed officials, signaling the beginning of tighter Russian control. A few years later, in 1824, the Orenburg Governor-General introduced similar reforms for small Jews, effectively removing the Khan's power and further consolidating Russian influence. These reforms forever changed the political landscape of Kazakhstan, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Kazakh steppe.
By the late 1860s, the Russian Empire undertook major reforms to gain entire control over the Kazakh steppe. In 1867 and 1868, new administrative regulations were enacted, dividing Kazakhstan into three governor generals: Turkestan, Orenburg, and West Siberia. These reforms mark as the end of the traditional Kazakh system of governance. Local leaders were stripped out of their power, and Kazakhstan representatives could only hold minor positions in the lowest administrative levels, volosts and auls. As Russian settlers moved in, nomads were pushed into untilled lands. The new regulations allowed Russia to tighten up its grip on the region, securing a control power over the majority of the population. These reforms set the stage for Russia's colonial expansion, dislining Kazakhstan establishing firm control over their homeland.
To conclude, the colonization of Kazakhstan in the early 18th century is a topic that cannot be answered unequivocally. On the one hand, the Russian Empire provided security and helped to avoid the possibility of the complete disappearance of the Kazakhs as a nation as a result of constant wars with the Dzungars. On the other hand, the decision of Abu Khan led to centuries-old dependence which continued into the next page of the history under the name the Soviet Union.